Good morning, Wabash.
Leo is a senior English major. He's the captain of the tennis team, treasurer of our student body, and a member of Delta's National Undergraduate Council. He works on campus as an enrollment officer, writing center consultant, and first bus fellow for the nation quality. Leo spent this past summer interning with the New Hampshire Public Defender's Office and goes to attend law school at Wabash. shOUT is a sophomore from Columbia City, Indiana, who intends on majoring in rhetoric and minoring in film and digital media. He is a member of the golf team and the volleyball team, and is a representative of the Student Athletic Advisory Committee. He is also the shOUT social media chair and the hockey club treasurer. He currently works on campus as a sports broadcaster for the Wabash College Video Network and hopes to continue his career in the sports industry as a sports broadcaster or journalist at the Wabash. Let's give a warm welcome to our speaker.
Good morning, Wabash. Good morning. I would like to thank the Skills Club for giving shOUT this opportunity to speak today, my teammates on the tennis team, and my fraternity brothers at Delt for their continued support. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for being here and for listening. Stepping onto campus fall of my freshman year, I never would have imagined being up here and speaking to you all like I am today. But I think that if you can find yourself graduating from Wabash and genuinely look back and say to yourself, I'm the exact same person I was fall of my freshman year, you should probably be asking college for a refund. In my time at Wabash, classes, practices, and extracurriculars have all taught me valuable skills, but standing here as a senior, I can honestly say that it's been the relationships and the community here at Wabash that have taught me the most. Coming to Crawfordsville was a giant leap outside of my comfort zone. Being from New Hampshire, over 900 miles away, I didn't really know anyone at Wabash, or anyone in Indiana for that matter. On top of that, socially, Wabash is unique, but also very, very different from where I came from. For one thing, most, if not all of my friends in high school were girls. I'm also super passionate about politics, and I'm sure some of you who have had class with me already probably know I'm rarely shy about sharing my liberal opinions. Wabash is a college for men where the majority of the student body identifies as politically conservative. So driving out to campus in the fall of 2020, I really wasn't sure if Wabash was going to be the right place for me. I distinctly remember walking up to my room after having just said bye to my mom and feeling this pang of fear that I was now all alone and maybe that I had made the wrong decision. I quickly realized, however, that I needed to put aside some of my expectations about what Wabash was going to be like and buy into the Wabash that I wanted to see. A couple weeks after moving, sitting at my desk in Williams Hall, an idea came to me. I emailed all of the freshmen in my living room this cryptic message asking them to come by my room to talk about a top secret mission that I was planning. Sure enough, they all came, and I pitched them the idea of painting the senior bench for independence on campus. Students from fraternities and organizations across Wabash have been painting the bench for over a decade, showcasing their group's identity and presence on campus by painting the bench in their respective colors. As a freshman, I had been told that independents didn't paint the bench. And us being a prideful group of GEI freshmen, well, we wanted to showcase independence presence here at Wabash. A couple days later, armed with red, white, and blue paints, and shrouded in dark attire, we spent 4 or 5 hours painting the senior bench. After finishing up the final touches, I finally went back to my room to grab my backpack for my 8 a.m. tutorial with Dr. Nelson, only to come back and find that someone had smeared all of the drying paint on the bench that we just finished. All that was left was the big blue Independence written across the back. We had made the mistake of leaving the bench unguarded, and having been the one to have painted it, I knew we couldn't leave it looking like that. So after tutorial, I grabbed the paint and went back to fix the bench in the middle of the day. Guys walked by and chirped me, saying things like, "This is why G's don't paint the bench," and giving me slighting looks. I felt guilty for having painted the bench as an independent, and honestly, pretty alone out there painting by myself. That is, until I was joined by a Wabash legend, Professor David Phillips. Dr. Phillips came over and asked me a bit about who I was and what I was doing painting the bench. Dr. Phillips, an emeritus professor of chemistry at the time, went on to explain to me the full history of what is actually the Thompson Memorial Suite. Originally erected in 1905, Dr. Phillips told me that independents were actually the 4th group on campus to paint the bench. Dr. Phillips not only gave me his company, but also this sense of connectedness through his sharing of history. I realized that generations of independent Wabash students had stood exactly where I was standing and painted the bench just like I was doing. I started feeling less alone. In this brief encounter with him, Dr. Phillips taught me the power that history has to give us a sense of interconnectedness and belonging. I think that's why History Months for minoritized groups, like this month, can be so valuable. Because of the persecution that so often comes with being queer, mainstream history is largely about heterosexual people. There are actually some states that even today are trying to ensure history is taught exclusively about heterosexual people. But lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, or LGBTQ, History Month is an opportunity to recognize generations of people who have fallen outside the normal boundaries of heterosexuality and cisgenderdom, which in turn helps give queer people today a better sense of belonging and validation in a similar way that learning a bit of history about the bench made me feel better about taking part in a campus tradition. When people had told me that independents didn't paint the bench, it created this sense that doing so would be wrong or bad or abnormal. Heteronormativity functions in kind of a similar way. Heteronormativity is this idea that heterosexuality is the only coherent and natural sexual orientation. It also means that the general assumption is that someone's straight until they've indicated otherwise. Living in a world where being straight is the only sexuality considered normal is something I really started to struggle with my sophomore year. That previous summer was genuinely the first time I felt like I was in love. Having been in relationships with girls before, I knew instantly that this, what I was feeling about this guy, was completely different than anything I'd ever felt before. The best way I can describe it would be like the difference between pulling out some laundry and getting zapped by some static as opposed to shoving a fork in a power outlet. If any of you have felt like you're in love before, you'll probably know what I mean. Coming back to campus for sophomore year, even though at that point I had sort of accepted that I am gay, I didn't know how I should go about telling other people. I had just moved into my fraternity house as a sophomore pledge, and I was scared of the judgment and the assumptions that I thought might come with coming out. But that fear quickly turned into turmoil, and I started to feel like I wasn't being true to myself, and like I was deceiving the people around me who I cared about and who I knew cared about me. I remember serenading sororities at Purdue with my pledge brothers and never feeling more different from some of my closest friends. On the tennis court, I was frequently smacking balls in practice, being a bad teammate, and screaming at myself when I would miss a shot. I was fearful of what people would think, or how being gay might change my relationships, but the friction from being seen as something that I'm not started to creep into the other things that I really cared about. The Sunday after Thanksgiving break, I finally told my pledge brothers, then my fraternity brothers, followed by the tennis team, that I am gay. It took me 19 years to be comfortable being known and seen as a queer person, partly because of heteronormativity. Growing up, I never imagined myself marrying a man or being gay because pretty much all the movies I watched, the books I read, the people I looked up to, and the history I learned were all about straight people. So when I first had that moment of seriously questioning if I was different, a wave of shame and guilt washed over me. I would lie in bed and wish that the next morning I would wake up feeling normal. I think that's why I take so much pride in being queer today. Because for so long, I would have done anything not to be gay. But in my time here at Wabash, I've come to realize that we get to make the rules. We get to choose how we think about ourselves, and we get to choose how we treat one another. By choosing to come out and to take pride in my identity, like choosing to take part in painting the bench and to take pride in being independent, I shaped my own experience here at Wabash for the better. The choice to come out, along with the choice of others to be accepting of the person that I am, has had a massive impact on my life. Those choices actually led to much more success on the tennis court. Freshman year, I had a losing record of 7-23 in both singles and doubles. On court, I was struggling with my identity as a tennis player, but also as a person. The following season, after coming out, I was 22 and 15. Taking pride in my identity is still something I struggle with, but it's also something I feel grateful for every day. Generations of LGBTQ people didn't have the option of being recognized for who they are. Even today, there are queer people here at Wabash, in Indiana, in the United States, and around the world who don't have the option to be visibly who they are. But here at Wabash, our choices are what shape our community. We can choose to be mindful of one another's perspectives and identity. We can choose to be a place where any student can succeed and shape their own experience here. we can choose to be an institution where anyone can paint the bench. Thank you.
Gonna be a tough one to follow up. Good morning, Wabash. Before I say anything else, I would like to personally thank the Sphinx Club for giving shOUT the opportunity to speak to campus on the issues that we are passionate about. I would also like to thank Louis Rivera and Dr. Cavendish for believing in me and the message that I would like to share with you today. And lastly, I want to thank my Wabash brothers, close friends, and family for showing up and supporting me today. So, for my fellow Wabash brothers that may not know this, I am bisexual. Even though I think it's relatively clear based on the pride clothes that I wear, the pride band I wear on my wrist, and the pride flag in my Instagram bio. I started questioning my sexuality during my freshman and sophomore years of high school, and I pretty much knew that I was bi during my junior year. The thing is that I did not feel comfortable and safe enough to come out because of the community that I was in. It was a small, conservative, and religious town, so as you probably can imagine, not the LGBTQ paradise that young queer man dreams of. In high school, like at Wabash, I was an athlete. Society gives us stereotypical ideas about athletes and masculinity, and these societal stereotypes of queer men don't fit into those athletic expectations. It's not really seen as normal to be an athlete and be queer. And that message was clearly conveyed in the locker rooms that I was a part of during my high school years. The F slur was thrown around constantly, and there were some pretty homophobic things being said. I remember I reached a certain point in my head where I decided to bury my true self and act like someone that I was not in order to prevent the harassment that I knew I would have faced. But after I graduated high school and arrived at Wabash, I was really trying to figure out if it could be a safe space for me to be able to come out. Thankfully, I had some amazing roommates, and I made a very solid circle of friends throughout that first semester. So I was building up confidence in the Wabash community, but then winter break hit. So I went home for break, and I just struggled. I went from being in a place where LGBTQ people were mostly accepted, to being in a place where LGBTQ people weren't accepted at all. Going back home reminded me of some of the things that I heard while I was in high school. Like, imagine being gay. That'd be awful. Being gay is a sin, so why would you ever make that choice? Or, I'd kill myself if I was gay. After Christmas finished up, I started watching some LGBTQ movies, and I came across one film called Pinning Kisses. It's a French film from 2016, and I really resonated with one of the main characters, Louis. I won't spoil too much of the film, but for the majority of the movie, Louis fights the battle of being a closeted, gay, teenage boxer. Now, I'm no boxer, and I think that's pretty obvious with my physical stature. But I know what it's like to be in Louis' shoes as a closeted athlete with a world of homophobia surrounding him. But as the movie goes on, Louis finds the courage to be his true self, and that is what inspired me to come out. In the early morning hours of January 1st, I sat my mom down and showed her this movie. It eventually came out to her around 2:30 in the morning. Now, I'm not one to brag, but that has got to be one of the best New Year's resolutions in the history of New Year's resolutions. I decided that I wasn't going to go another year hiding this for my loved ones. So then I came out to my friends on campus in February, my dad in March, and then the rest of my friends and family in April and May. So after I fully came out, I felt this massive weight lifted off my shoulders. I felt like I was no longer living a lie, and I felt like I was finally my true self. I also got to see who my true friends were, because some people didn't accept this part, and they decided to not talk to me. Thankfully, I found a lot of support from my Wabash brothers, especially my roommates, the golf team, and the volleyball team. Now, like I said, being queer and being an athlete is not really seen as normal, and some people tend to voice that opinion loud queer. During our first golf tournament of this year, I heard a couple of remarks from some of the other players at the tournament that really stuck with me. So as we arrived at the golf course for the second round of the tournament, I went to the green to start warming up. I pulled out my putter, some golf balls, but most importantly, I pulled out one of my air guns because I listen to music when I warm up. Now, I don't keep both in just because I need to hear if someone is talking to me. But as I was hitting some putts around the green, I saw one of the other teams standing in a circle and talking just off the green. I then noticed that a couple of them were staring, pointing at me. As I hit a couple of putts near where they were standing, I heard one of them say, "Ho, which one of us is going to have to play the Wabash F-slip today?" Obviously, they were thinking that I didn't hear them because they saw that I had an airplane, but I heard everything that they were saying. And it was just my luck that we were playing with that team that day. Now, in order to prevent myself from getting frustrated and saying something out of anger, I decided to put my putter away and went to the clubhouse. As I walked inside, I saw one of the guys that I had played with during the first day of the tournament. And he said, "Hey Sean, how's it going?" We had a small conversation. He wished me luck. I wished him luck. And then I started walking to the water fountain to fill up my water bottle. As I walked out of that room, I heard someone shout across the room, "Oh, you played with the F-slur yesterday?" to that guy that I just talked to. Hearing the F-slur being thrown around like that, especially when it was directed at me, really hurt. I wasn't sure how to deal with the situation, and I considered saying something to Chris Scott to make him aware of what was just said about me. However, I decided to not say anything. I decided not to say anything because I didn't want to make a scene, which is a feeling that many queer people are familiar with as they come up against people who casually or explicitly harass them. It wasn't until after I played a terrible racquetball that I realized that I made a mistake. I let my frustration from those pre-round statements affect the way that I played. I felt like I let my team down, and if any of you know the competitive side of me, I absolutely hate feeling like it. I want to have a positive impact on my team, not a negative. It was just so hard for me to compete knowing that I was playing a 5-hour round of golf with someone who had cowardly called me the F-slur behind my back. I felt a tremendous weight go back on my shoulders because I felt like I had to once again suppress my true self and act like someone that I was not in order to avoid more harassment. The sad thing is that this homophobia among athletes does not just exist at other schools. It exists here too. Wabash is a community of mostly athletes, and I've heard a lot from my athletic friends that the homophobic locker room talk happens on their teams, in their fraternities, and in their other friend groups. Not to mention, I've heard things while walking around campus, in my classes, and even in my own dorm. What I really want to emphasize is that Wabash operates under the foundations of brotherhood. When you first arrive at Wabash and go through the bringing in ceremony, we all instantly become family. Members of the family love one another. They do not tear one another down. For this Wabash family, we need to do a better job of being inclusive and respectful to all of our brothers. And that starts with fostering better environments in our lives. Now, some of you may be thinking, "Oh, whatever is said in the locker room between teammates, it's just a joke. Get thick or skin. Get over it." But it's not that simple. I know brotherhood comes with jokes. We all get close enough with one another where we can make some jokes here and there. But in the end, there are jokes that are made out of love, and there are some that are made from ignorance. As a bisexual guy in these locker rooms, it feels a lot more like the second option. All those jokes and slurs create a similar level of hurt, but it hurts significantly more from the people that are supposed to be my own family. You also may be thinking that this change only matters to people that are out in public about their sexualities and gender identities. But again, simply is not the case. Yes, this change would affect people that are already out, like myself and Liam, because we would feel accepted and not disrespected. But this change would also affect one other group of people, those who are qualified. I've been in this position before, where I did not feel safe to come out because of the homophobic things that were being said. For all the people that could possibly be closeted here at Wabash, they feel the same way. They feel trapped because their teammates, their own family, are saying harsh and homophobic things. Again, some of you may be thinking that you don't know anyone on your team that is a part of the LGBTQ community. But according to a global survey from Ipsos in 2021, nearly 1 in 5 young adults identify as a part of the community. So statistically, here at Wabash, that is someone on your athletic team. The reason you may not know someone that is a part of our community, however, is because that positive person sees you as an unsafe person to be around because of the things that you said. Some of these positive people could be first-year students as well. I remember what it was like during my first year here at Wabash, trying to find my friends. I also remember what it was like coming out to the golf team. And I remember that I told them that I want us to be a better team of men and create a better culture for any incoming students that may be in the file. I wanted to make sure that if anything, someone felt safe enough to be their true self or in a good group of 15 people on campus. But culture is what it's all about, isn't it? That's another thing that Wabash prides itself on. Each athletic team has their own culture. But if your team has a culture where homophobic jokes and slurs are thrown around like it's nothing, how can you expect everyone, including those that are a part of the LGBTQ community, to buy into what the team is going to accomplish? We expect them to compete at the highest level, but they can't even fully express their true selves and be comfortable in their own skin because of the things that are being said in their locker room. It does not matter if a certain comment is made directly at someone, or if it's just said around them. It still hurts to hear. It does not matter because it makes someone feel like they don't matter, like their life has no value, and like their life is a laughing stock. And in the end, it can seriously affect the mental health of those LGBTQ people. I struggled with my mental health prior to coming in. I had to constantly fight the battle in my head, thinking that my life was worthless and pointless because of my sexuality. Since coming out, my mental health has significantly improved, but that does not stop me from being an advocate for LGBTQ youth. According to the Trevor Project in their 2023 U.S. National Survey on the Mental Health of LGBTQ youth, 34% of people in the age range of 18 to 24 considered suicide in the last year. Also, 54% reported symptoms of depression. These numbers are so astronomically high, and it's about time that we, Wabash, start being a part of change. When I first received word of the possibility of me doing this chapel talk, I immediately went to my academic advisor, Professor Cherry. In the conversation that I had with him, he reminded me of the gentleman's rule and what it calls for us Wabash men to do. He then proceeded to say something that stuck with me to this very day. He said, "Sean, always remember that gentlemen can't be bystanders." I cannot find Professor Cherry's quote to be more true. In order to be the change, we can't let homophobic things continue to be said in our locker rooms and not stand up to say something. We have to call out this homophobic culture because it can have very real implications. If you stand up to say something to one of your teammates, you could be protecting a closeted teammate. You make it clear that you are a safe person to talk to, but most importantly, you give them a sign of hope. Not to mention you are helping to kick the stigma that sticking up for someone in the LGBTQ community is weird. That is what family does. We defend, love, and empower one another. We are here to bring the best out of each other. I'm grateful for the people that I have in my life, especially my brothers here at Wabash. I care about each and every one of my brothers because, once again, we are one big family. Family means everything to me. And while I may be an only child, this Wabash brotherhood is second to none. And I want to trade my life here for the world because Wabash always